Okay, well, I feel ridiculous. That took me about 30 seconds to solve. So I realize I always make this mistake when I start opening up a new window. If we go ahead and look at this thing, X pending right here, so it returns the number of events that have been received from the X server but have not been removed from the queue. Um, so let's see, and yeah, so since I did not explain what an X event is, we can go ahead and look at that. So an X event is going to be things like key presses, button presses, mouse movement, etc. But it's also going to be things like the window being dragged, closed, minimized, etc. Or something like the window being mapped or drawn on the screen, right? And so the issue with what was happening is we weren't actually ever getting those events. So what we want to do is say X pending display, and this is going to return us a number, which is the number of events that were specified. And you'll notice this is identical to events queued with the mode queued after flush. So let's go ahead and look at what that does. So let's see. I want after flush specifically. It returns the number of events already in the queue. The number is non-zero. So the notion of a queue is we can think of it like an array. There's different ways that you could implement it, but this is probably the most helpful for us right now. In fact, we might actually make a queue of our own. But, it's just a line of people, right? Or a line of events. And it could be any number. It can be, 0, or it could be, 10,000. And it's just going to be in an order, right? So they're in the order that they came in, right? So if I press A and then click, it's going to be a button press A in the queue and then a click in the queue, right? So we want to say that while this is greater than 0, we want to say, do some input or whatever, right? Let's go ahead and compile that now, and we get our window up. So the issue was that we weren't. Oops. Let me go ahead and close that. This is probably the first thing to do is go ahead and get the window closed. So yeah, we weren't ever doing anything with the events that we have already gotten from mapping the window and stuff. So that should help us now. All right, so we have this struct, which is an event, right? And we want to go ahead and get all of the events that have happened. So if we look at next event, this is going to take a display and an event, and it's going to a pointer to an event, and it's going to write in whatever event is next in the queue into that event. So what's happening is we're saying, hey, we have an event struct that we went ahead and made at the beginning right here. And we're going to say, all right, I want you to give me the next event that you have, and I will go ahead and store it in the event, and then I'll do something in my program based off of that, right? So if we say X next event, we're going to say display, and we're going to do ampersand event, because, again, we want to get the address of it. Oops, typed that wrong. Now, if we go ahead and look at our event struct, these are all of the things in an event. One of the things is the type. So we're going to say that, all right, if our event.type equals key press. We're going to do something, based on what the key is, maybe. Now, this is probably kind of weird looking. Because, we aren't doing something like if event.type equals 0 or event.type equals 1, right? So this is an indication that this thing is either a variable or a macro. In our case, it's a macro. Just somewhere in xlib, they went ahead and did a #define key press. You notice they aren't using all caps like I use. So, don't think that all caps always means it's a macro. And, maybe they said that it equals 4, right? Something like that. It doesn't matter for our purposes. If we really wanted to know, we could do printf, right? And say the type is this. In fact, let's go ahead and do that anyway. Event.type. So if I say, oops, did I forget to compile? Oh, why is that not printing there for us? Oh, yeah, I know. So something that we can do is, again, this is why I advocated doing everything up front, even if we don't need it yet, but I forgot. We have this thing, select input, which is going to specify an event mask. So an event mask is, let's go ahead and pop in over here. So let's say that we have 4 different types that can happen. Let's say that we have a press, a release, a hold, and I don't know, a button press. Well, in fact, I'll just say button press and move, right? So we'd go ahead and say that we have a 4-digit binary number, right? And if we have a press, it would look like that. If we have a release, it would look like that. If we have a move, it would look like that. And if we had a button press, like on a mouse, it would look like that, right? Well, we could go ahead and say that the mask for what we want is we want to say that our program, it only handles press and release, right? So our mask would look like that. And then anytime that we get an event like a move, like right here, we would AND our event with our mask. So we take event and mask, which is going to return something, right? So in this case, our mask is 0011, and our event is 0100. So by ANDing them together, if you remember from one of the earlier videos, we would get 0 and 0 is 0, 0 and 1 is 0, 0 and 1 is 0, 0 and 1 is 0. So we get nothing, right? So we have essentially masked out or filtered our move action, and we're saying, hey, you know what? We don't care about move actions in this program. We aren't interested. We don't want to look at those. So it would go ahead and filter them out automatically for us. Now, if our mask was all zeros by default, then whatever we would get would always be 0, right? And we will see that our mask right now is actually, it is 0. So what we want to do is use this function, xselect input, display, window, and let's see, what are our event types of them written down here? I just want to see. Yeah, so we have key press, key release, button press, button release, pointer motion, button 1 motion, 2 motion, 3, blah, 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 blah. So let's go ahead and say that we have a key press mask, and let's see, do X11 key press mask, because this lists a bunch of them. Yeah, so set key press mask, key release mask, button press, and button release in the events of the windows to get a key press, a key release, a button press, a button release, respectively, right? So we'll go ahead and say, hey, we want a key press mask, we want a key release mask, and we'll just we'll do the whole thing, right? Button press mask and button release mask, right? And we also want this thing called an exposure mask. Exposure mask X11 xlib. Yeah, okay. Here's the list of all our things. So the exposure is going to be an X-expose event. And I believe that's going to be things like hiding the window, bringing up the window, things like that. So we'll go ahead and also grab that. So now we should be good to go. Yeah, and you see now we're doing a bunch of things. So when I type A, I get a 2. And then when I release it, I get a 3. 2, 3, 2, 3, 2, 3. So we know that the 2 is going to be the key press, and we know that the 3 is the key release. And when I click, we get 4 for the button press and 5 for the button release, right? So that is cool and everything. Oops. What I want to do now is go back to our event. Yeah, our event structure. So we have the type. We have the X key event, and that's going to be a type. All of these different things, which is key press or key release. What I really want to know is the key code. So this is going to be which key it was that was pressed. So let's go ahead and in here we're going to say printf. It's going to be event, or yeah, key pressed is, we'll do that because again we know that this is a unsigned int. Unsigned just means, hey, it's only 0 to positive, right? It's never negative. And that is in the X key event of the X event, right? So we're going to say event.key. Sorry, event.xkey. It is key code. Dot key code, right? Let's go ahead and pilot. Oh, what did I? Oh, it's lowercase k. All right, so oops, I'm going to go ahead and put a new line in so we're happier. You'll notice that these are not going to be ASCII keys. So I typed A and I got 38. I typed O and got 32, E and 26, and I don't know, do I get something different when I hold down shift and press A? Not really. What happens when I press escape? I get 9. Okay, well, that is good because I'm going to make a bool. I'm going to call it running and say it equals true. And I'm going to say, all right, hey, if event.xkey.keycode equals 9, we're going to say running equals false. And then I'm going to say while running, we're going to keep doing the game. Otherwise, we're going to quit. So now I should be able to type a bunch of things, cool, and if I press escape, the program closes. Cool. So I think that's good for this video. Again, this is boilerplate code. It isn't very fun to write. It isn't very interesting. I mean, it's cool that we can do this stuff. It's very powerful, but just the actual process of writing the code isn't fun. It can be tedious. You have to look up a bunch of different things. You can easily get into situations where just nothing is happening and you don't understand why. And really, the only solution is to go ahead and read the documentation, read the manual, and try, just experiment with different things and see what pieces might be missing. Luckily, though, it's code that we don't have to write often. Like, I've written this code probably 4 or 5 times in my life. And keep in mind, I teach this, right? If I weren't teaching this class, I wouldn't have to be rewriting this code as often as I do. I would just write it once, and anytime I needed it in a new project, I would go ahead and copy-paste it, right? I didn't want to do that. Today, I wanted to show you me writing it from scratch. So that was why, I ran into some of the errors that I did. But hopefully for you, you'll have this as reference, and anytime you want to create a new game, you can go ahead and just, copy-paste this code and not worry about it. So yeah, let me know if you have any questions on this. And in the next video, we can go ahead and start doing, things like drawing things onto the screen.